Good day and good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Christian Baxter and this is Creative 101, the show that brings you artists and what they've been working on during lockdown. Tonight I'm going to be speaking to Dan Piccini and Jim Wilcox from the Hypothetics about their new single Impact 18 and Big Cheddar, followed by a pre-recorded performance of Big Cheddar. Enjoy! Alright, so have you always done music? How did you get into it?
So Chris, I've been playing guitar since I was about 4. My mum taught me the guitar when I was really little, and the first thing I learned to play was Happy Birthday. And then when I was in primary school, I did guitar lessons and stuff. And I'd been playing a little bit before anyone else who was doing lessons, so I sort of got to do slightly more interesting stuff in the lessons than everyone else. So I've got a bit of special treatment, I guess. And I sort of got relatively good by the time I got to secondary school, and I was sort of playing all the old music my parents listened to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and anyone really, like the Smiths. And I used to play a lot of covers at lower secondary school, and I joined, and I was in the same year as George. And obviously he used to do a very similar thing. He used to play covers of stuff on his ukulele, because he used to play ukulele quite a lot, see. And so we used to play together a lot at school concerts, so I got to know George that way. And then we both did music GCSE and music A level together, and we both sort of started writing more of our own music and getting into different genres. George was sort of already had formed a band with Jim and Joe. And sort of September, when I started sixth form, he asked me to come along as well because he needed a guitarist, so I sort of joined that way, and I've sort of been with him since.
Yeah, kind of similar, to be fair. My dad was in a local cover band, so I was always sort of watching them when I was very little, hitting pots and pans and shit. When you're little, it's like it looks like the most fun thing. So I started learning drums in primary school, and then pretty much met George and Joe, like Dan said, and started a little thing with them. And then Dan joined in, and that's pretty much where we're at now.
You've got a new single out. What was the creative process like for you guys?
So, which one are you on about, Chris? You on about Impact or Big Cheddar, or both of them?
Both.
Both of them. Okay, so Impact was a song that Joe wrote a bass line for. And we sort of played around on the bass line for a little bit, and often a lot of our songs do start from one of us having an idea, and the others of us sort of we sort of jam with it in a practice, and we'll write different layers over the top. So that's what happened with Impact. Joe was playing a bass line, and I sort of added some funky guitar kind of stuff over the verses. And we had that verse section going, the sort of the bit that George raps over at the start. He had that for quite a while. And Joe he hadn't written any tune for the chorus, but he'd written some lyrics. And I'd been listening quite a lot to Sam Fender at the time, and I kind of wanted to have a sort of heavy guitar sound in the chorus, a bit like On That Sound or something like that. So that's sort of what I tried to do for the chorus, and then the others sort of wrote around that, and that's sort of how that one developed. I'm not entirely sure about Big Cheddar, actually. Do you remember more, Jim, about how that sort of came around?
It was, we just gone to the shop, and we were looking through the crisp section, and I think it came about. It was a pretty stupid conversation, to be fair. We were talking about how there's mini cheddars, like the little things, but there isn't regular size or big cheddars. This is a pretty stupid conversation, but yeah, it ended up pretty much Joe was writing some funky bass line, as he does, and then it's just pretty much jamming it, and then the lyrics just came in from that conversation, I think.
I was listening a lot to a band called Krungbin, Chris. They're a sort of they're a band that are influenced by sort of old Turkish funk. It's quite an interesting sound, but I was trying to get that on quite choppy guitars in the chorus, and in the verses, and then on the chorus I was listening to a lot of Stone Roses and stuff like that at the time. It's a bit more of a Britpoppy sort of sound, that chorus, I think, or not Britpop, but sort of pre-Britpop kind of. Yeah, that sort of late 80s sort of sound in terms of the chords. So that's sort of where that came from.
What was the recording process like for you?
Well, so we record at Factory. I was telling you a bit about earlier. We basically get our hours off the scheme we're on, the record scheme we're on. But we usually start. We spend a little while setting up all the microphones and everything around the room. Time spent 3 hours trying to work out how to turn the computer on as well, which is a bit of a waste. But then yeah, usually we get the. So I think the first time we recorded stuff, we did it in layers. We did the drums first. We recorded everything to a sort of click track. So you do a
that
sort
was,
of rough.
that was for the first 3 singles we did.
First
We did it that way.
Yeah. We did click tracks, but for the most recent ones, we didn't bother with click tracks. We didn't really like them. We just played straight to a metronome. And I think, I'm trying to remember, but did we did you did bass and drums at the same time, didn't you, this time? I think.
And guitar.
And guitar, yeah, bass drums. So
Yeah,
we
this time.
did everything apart from vocals at the same time. And I think it's nice because when we were doing it in layers, it's quite a weird sensation playing along to a recording of the rest of the band members. You don't really feel like you're playing at the same time. You lose a lot of the feel.
Yeah, there's definitely more of a live element in the new ones because of that. Like it feels a lot more natural.
Alive. In fact, actually, on Impact, we used a metronome up until the bridge, and in the bridge we had the metronome stop. So from the bridge onwards, there's no metronome. That's just us all sort of playing in time with each other, as it were. And it sounds a lot more alive, I think. So yeah, we recorded the instruments together. Then we'd record vocals usually, and then I recorded some guitar overdubs, and Ed had been. I think you did some drum hits on certain cymbals and stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, some little bits and bobs, some little bells and whistles.
Nice and tight. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we did. So for the first 3 singles, we did 3 days in the studio, and we did 1 single a day, pretty much. And then, yeah, we booked 3 days again this year. So we recorded Impact, Big Cheddar, and then, spoiler alert, another one in the works at the moment.
Yeah, we actually went in with the intention, Chris, of recording Impact and the one that we've not yet released, and got to the end of it and thought, we could do Big Cheddar too, because it's quite a simple track to do. So yeah, there's definitely, yeah, it's not like the track we've not yet released has been in any way rushed. It is one we focused on a fair bit. So yeah, it's something to look forward to, I think, hopefully, if I may say so myself.
Have you spent much studio time on the track?
Yeah, so like Jim said, we spent about a day on each track, and that was almost, to be honest, a full day of recording. We don't do much in the way of mixing or anything on the day. We usually wait until afterwards. We get as much recording done as possible, get as many options, as many takes, and then we sort of sift through it a bit afterwards and send that off to get mixed by a professional.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have a bit of time after you've actually recorded it to just like reflect on it as well before you get it mixed. Well, that's what we found anyway, because otherwise you can kind of get a bit distracted by when you're in the studio for 3 days, it kind of all becomes a bit of a blur, to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it works different ways for different people, but that's just the process we've kind of worked out.
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of sitting around as well, because obviously past the point of us having recorded the drums, guitar and bass at the same time, then it's mostly vocals, so there's not a lot usually for me, Jim or Joe to do. It's a lot of Josh doing stuff.
You're pretty much sat just in a box with no windows for 3 days. It does get a bit.
You start a bit mental. Yeah.
once you've sent it away to get mixed and mastered, how many takes does it take till you sort of find the one you like?
Usually takes about 3, doesn't it? There's
Mm.
we used a guy mixing them called Jack Longman, and he's based down in Kent, I think. And he usually he'll do one draft and he'll send it to us and ask what we want, and then we'll tell him what we want. And he'll correct it, and then we'll do that again one more time. So it usually takes 3 times for the mixing process. I think the mastering's usually pretty instantaneous, isn't it?
Yeah.
The mastering process isn't usually, unless you're a mastering artist, you don't really have an ear for telling things that specific. So I think if you're sending it off to someone to get mastered, it's really important to check the reputation, because there's nothing you can do to hear what sounds good in it. The mastering's more to optimize it for digital platforms and playing online, really.
Well, one useful thing we do is, before we send it away for mixing or mastering, we give the engineer some references, so like what we want it to sound like roughly, and then they kind of work it out, try and get it similar to that, and then it's easier to move forward.
Yeah.
It's all about communication with them, really. Just being pretty clear what you want.
What gave you the inspiration for the artwork for Impact 18?
Oh, that's a good one. So after the first 3 singles, we kind of wanted to switch up a little bit, but then we kind of liked having a kind of theme each single with a colour. It kind of gives it some identity. So then we kind of decided on the colour, which we quite liked. It's quite bright, the yellow. And then the next thing we did is basically just went through and found as many photos as we could, each of us. Luckily, George has some nice ones. There's a couple from Dan on there, a couple from me, I think a couple from Joe. So we all kind of sent photos in together, made a bit of a collage, just whacked some filters and stuff over it. And then, George did the drawing on top, which he quite enjoys doing. And it looks nice, to be fair. I think I was quite happy with how it turned out.
It's nice. We've got George sort of has a bit of a unique style that he's developed with the way he writes his letters and stuff, and the sort of style of drawings he does. And it's starting to. We started it a little bit on Take It, on the single cover for that, and a little bit on Lambretta, and now quite a lot on Impact, and it's starting to become a bit more of a theme, and it ties them all together a little bit more nicely, I think.
Who came up with the sort of name hypothetics?
The name. Oh, Chris, the name took us so long. We went through. So before I joined, you were called the Stickmen, weren't you?
I didn't even agree to that name. I don't know where that came from, but yeah,
Jim wasn't happy with that.
Yeah.
We literally probably spent the first month or so going through names, trying to find something we all liked. And it took us a little while. We just would constantly be messaging a list of names to the chat and all going, oh, I don't like that, don't like this, don't like that. We settled on the name Laika after a while. There's the name of the dog that the Russians sent to space. And we played under that name for about a month and a half. But then we found out a lot of bands have got that name, so we thought we better carry on. Looking for names, and yeah, honestly,
we must have sent hundreds of names to the chat.
I've still got them in notes, because I used to write them down, Chris, and I used to just have them in notes, and I'd just write a list of names, and then I'd send them off to the chat each evening. Must have been hundreds, and then eventually we just said hypothetics, and whether we all at the time liked it or we were all just so fed up and it was a decent enough name and we sort of stuck with it, I don't know, but that's
I think it's so hard now, because there's so many bands. It's so saturated when you're trying to find a name. Pretty much everything you come up with is taken. So it was the first one. We were all kind of like, it's all right. So we decided we were going to go with it. And I think to be fair, there's been a few times we've questioned it, but then I think we're kind of growing into it now. I think it's quite nice.
I think the more you play under that name, and the more you get that name associated with your music, the more it suits you. It helped as well. Hypothetics isn't actually a real word in the dictionary. It's made up. So on Google search results, we came up top pretty easily, which is really good. We still come up at the top now, which is
Well,
nice.
to be fair, like the artist like doesn't fill the name.
No, yeah.
Like if you look at a lot of band names, a lot of them don't make sense, but then you don't really question it after a while.
No.
Yeah, it works. So
Yeah.
I think we're keeping it. There's no way we're going back now.
How long did it take you to get your sort of logo for the band?
So, because we had the initial logo, didn't we? Which was
Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen the new logo on the website, Chris?
I think so. The nice writing and
it's the sort of the George's style of writing, yeah. So initially, we the first logo we had was just Jim spent a lot of time on Photoshop, didn't you? You're just going through different fonts, and playing around with the.
We kind of rushed the first logo because we were just trying to get something out for gigs, but then the new one is I really like it. I'm happy with that. George did a good job on it.
Long character, yeah. So that's literally just the way George writes. He's really got he does every letter the same now, so he doesn't change. You know, he'll write every Z in the same way, even though it's a weird sort of font. So he's got a bit of a typeface almost, and he just used that to write out our logo.
Because it's the same font that's used in the logo and in a lot of the artwork, I think it kind of ties everything together.
It's all about creating a bit of an identity. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, for sure.
How have you found creating an image for the band?
I think we're gradually finding it. I mean, we didn't play as many gigs as we wanted to last year, just because we were all still at school and stuff. And then obviously now we haven't been able to play gigs, and I think that helps a lot in giving you an identity, because you kind of work out who you are as a live band primarily. I think we're starting to now, because we've been practicing a lot. We're doing it 2 or 3 times a week now instead of like once every 2 weeks. With the stuff we're sort of writing, you kind of gradually work out. I think also we're starting to kind of wear different stuff.
Yeah, I think the identity kind of creates itself. I think after it takes a little while. We've only been playing together, a year and a bit, and we've only really started to settle into a style as well. We had so much sort of cross-genre sort of stuff at the start. I mean, I think now that we've done that, and now that we know the sort of bands we want to support, because at the start, we'd look at bands like Idols and go, oh yeah, we'd like to support them, but then we'd also look at other bands that were completely different and go, oh, it'd be good to support them. And now I think our collective taste and what we like as a band and who we look up to has really changed. So obviously Idols is still up there, but we sort of know the scene that we want to break onto now, I think, and it gives us more identity, knowing what we've got to try and slot into to meet that audience.
I think it was kind of difficult finding the identity to start with, because we kind of don't, without sounding like pretentious, we don't kind of really fit into like a typical genre, I wouldn't say.
No, not at all.
So it's kind of hard to like base what you're wearing off other people. Not that you should anyway, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, not knowing how to fit that subculture, because we didn't really fit into any subculture, did we?
Not at the time. No.
We weren't really punk, weren't really indie, weren't really post-punk. We're kind of a mix of all of them, really, and the hip hop as well. It's all over the place.
How would you describe your music you typically create?
Well, it says on our what does it say on our bio currently? It's always changing it. It was at some point funky yet punky, and then it was a what was it? Boy band.
I'd say it's kind of the stuff I can only say the stuff we've been writing the last couple of weeks, but that is kind of a mixture between post-punk with it's just like rap elements.
Rap elements. Yeah,
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's exactly like a hip hop thing at the moment.
No, the hip hop is more present in the vocals, really. I don't think, and it may be It contributes a little bit in terms of maybe the syncopation on the bass lines and
Yeah.
stuff, and the repetition. But for all intents and purposes, it's probably categorizable as post-punk. I think, especially the recent stuff. We've been listening to bands like Murder Capital, Idols, and especially the new Idol stuff, which is interesting. I don't know if you know much about the production on the new album, Chris, but they worked with a American hip hop producer called Kenny Beats, and you can hear a lot more sort of sequential stuff in terms of the bass lines and in terms of the structures of the songs, and that's the sort of thing we go for to fit around.
A lot of them. It's becoming. There's a few kind of grimy elements as well in some bits.
Yeah, oh definitely. Yeah.
I think because we don't really listen to, apart from like those few bands Dan mentioned, a lot of the stuff we listen to is probably
electronic, isn't it? We don't listen to a lot of guitar music. I mean, we do, like individually we do, but not in terms of what we base our band's sound off.
I'd probably say about 20% of the music I listen to is like punk. Yeah. Well, I don't know, like as in punk rock.
Do you like stuff like the Stranglers and stuff then?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do actually. When we used to have a song called, we've sort of dropped it because it was a bit naff. It called Out of Luck, and it was almost a complete rip-off of, sounded very much like Peaches by the Stranglers. But yeah, we listen to that sort of stuff, and that works its way into the influence. But there's, like Jim said, a lot more of the hip hop and the grime, and to some extent as well, stuff like jungle and dub. That sort of finds its way.
It's quite nice, to be fair. A lot of the time, there'll be someone who just comes and sees us, and they'll like say after, oh, you remind me of whoever, like some artist. And it kind of never really occurs to you before, but then you start to see it. I wouldn't be able to say there's just like a few artists that kind of represent us. It kind of spans a pretty large spectrum.
I think the first time I saw you reminded me a bit of Laid Black.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen them a couple of times. Yeah, I'd say that. I think me and George and Joe have seen them together. So we probably took a bit of that inspiration.
Fair to say.
Yeah, that's cool. But it's like we'll get compared to a band like that, and then the next minute it'll be like The Doors or something. It jumps very far. Yeah, which I like, to be fair.
Someone was saying that George's vocals reminded them of Jim Morrison of The Doors, and I can't remember who it was, but I thought that's a stretch because George sounded really English and pretty shouty. But anyway, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that just shows an example of kind of how far it spans.
What's your fans' response to Impact 18 being like?
It's hard to tell because with lockdown and everything, we've not been able to play gigs. So when we release, it's the same when we released Lambretta at the start of lockdown. It's not done as well as the other singles we've released before it. So the response sort of, in terms of muted, but feedback, we've had good feedback, haven't we? Definitely.
Yeah, I think from our like kind of core fan base on on like Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, they've responded to it like really good, and like loads of people have kind of like said to me like how much they like it, which has been really nice to hear. It's been kind of hard to expand that audience at the moment because we haven't been able to play gigs, and that's a lot of people spread the word that way. Because I feel because we haven't got that many songs out on Spotify.
No,
a lot of people don't get a great idea of the kind of whole idea really. So yeah, it's been all right, but I think once we can start gigging again and doing a bit more promo, it'll pick up.
What do you think of it, Chris? What are your thoughts?
I think it's great. It has a really nice sound to it.
Nice.
Yeah. Which
I
is your
think,
favourite of the two?
yeah, big
I
question.
really like Big Cheddar, but then I also like Impact 18 as well. I really like how they sound so different. It's
If
just,
you
I,
had,
won't-
if
I
you had to
won't.
pick one, what would it be?
Oh,
uh,
cool.
I guess I'd have to go Big Cheddar.
Yeah,
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 I'll take
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Like that, like that.
Who would you most like to collaborate with?
I
Ooh,
think we've got to say idols, haven't we? We joke about it so often.
I don't know if it'd be like collaborate though. I'd
Or
like to play a gig with
okay,
them.
we'd love to gig with idols, yeah. In terms of collaboration, God, that's a broad question actually, because there's a lot of people who would be really, really interesting to. I like on one side, it'd be cool to do something with a rapper that we're all into,
Yeah,
just in terms of like their take on our music. I don't think there's any like there's no other bands I think as such that we'd want to specifically collaborate with. I don't think are there. I think it would have to be like a solo artist or a
yeah,
rapper or a vocalist as well. I
yeah.
don't know.
I'd kind of be down to get like a vocalist, just for like
Yeah,
someone who's quite different to you and George.
yeah,
Uh, Potentially just as like I don't know. I don't think we'd necessarily pick one, but I think we're quite willing to work with whoever.
yeah. See what opportunity presents.
Mm, for
Have you
sure.
done many live stream gigs during lockdown?
We've done none actually, have we? I posted some videos on my socials, but they were mostly covers. I did play Lambretta, but we've not done any
I
live
think
stream.
mainly because a lot of people have been doing them. We kind of don't want to just do the same as everyone else. Um, but also because we've kind of just got practicing again as much as possible, trying to get in a
Yeah,
routine of it. So I think give it a few months, and we'll be a lot tighter in terms of having a nice set and writing new stuff. I think we kind of just wanted to concentrate on that for the moment, um, and then when we can start gigging again, like hit that. And that's the plan.
Have
yeah.
you found like people buying your music versus people streaming your music?
Always streaming massively outnumbers the number of people buying. I think as a general trend in music these days, a lot less people buy it, especially in digital formats. I think if we, there's obviously a lot of bands out there that now with the revival of vinyl and cassettes do stuff like that, and they obviously get a few sales, but even those are in small batches. I think there's a lot less people buying music these days when it's so easy to just pirate it off YouTube or something. And it's a shame because the amount we get from streams is pretty small.
Mm.
But I think most of the music these days, most bands out there probably generate most of their revenue from playing live and touring about rather than their music sales, unless they're really big.
Yeah, it's kind of there's pros and cons to it because, like you said, you don't make pretty much anything off streaming, but at the same time, it kind of gives everyone the incentive to then go out and play live shows.
Yeah,
I feel if people made loads of money off just selling music, they wouldn't play
yeah,
it live as much. So it kind of evens out. And
yeah,
I'd rather to be fair, it's more satisfying making money playing live than it is
yeah.
people buying your music.
100%.
How do you feel the internet has impacted on the music business?
I think it's had an effect on. It's been a bit of a leveler. I think it's allowed um, smaller bands that possibly before wouldn't have been recognised to put their stuff somewhere, and it's created a greater sense of network across the whole industry. Um, at the same time, though, I think it's made it easier to compare yourself to other bands. And there's a lot more samey music out there. There's a lot more bands that look at another band and go, "Oh, we want to sound like that," and you get so many carbon copies, kind of all you sort of two-door cinema club vibe kind of bands, sort of musical wallpaper. Get a lot of that, and I think that's probably because of social media and the way that bands look at other bands that they like the sound of or that are doing well and want to have a bit of that, so they just copy the sound. And I think the other thing it's done is enabled a lot more collaboration, a lot more creativity. There's a lot more sampling, especially in the hip hop world. There's so much more cross sampling from different genres that you wouldn't have got go back 10 years. And like a prime example is Idles working with Kenny Beats. That's something that you would not have seen go back 10 years. You wouldn't have seen a hip hop producer working with a post punk band at all. So I think, yeah, it
especially showed over lockdown the fact that even though obviously we couldn't see each other, we were still sending each other little clips and stuff of what we were making, and that kind of allows, for that situation, it allows stuff to keep ticking over. But like Dan said, it obviously has its drawbacks, because there's so much music online now that it's just all the same, a lot of it. But yeah, it just gives you the incentive to be more different, doesn't it? I think so.
If you could change one thing about the music industry, what would it be?
I'd make us bigger than the Beatles, Chris. I'd like there to be more government funding into the arts sector, into the music business. It's shown like over lockdown, the government have given, Wetherspoons, what was it, like 50 million to keep them on their feet, and they've not given a single penny to the Arts Foundation at all. So I'd like there to be more recognition across politics, across society as a whole, that music and the arts in general are legitimate careers, that those are people's livelihoods. And I'd also like it to be a little bit less commercialized, a little bit less pay to play kind of. There's a lot of bands that are at the top of the charts because they have big money record producers behind them that can really shove that stuff into any DJ's set list on the radio. I was much more diverse stuff out there.
I was going to say, Dan, that especially the big radio stations, as soon as there's like a massively famous artist, even if they might be like 20, 30 years into their career or more, they'll always play their new single when there's like thousands of younger artists who are a lot of them are making a lot fresher music, and they're a lot more hungry to make a career out of it. Yeah, and I feel like it'd be nice if they played a lot more kind of grassroots stuff. And hopefully look into it a little bit more. That's what I'd say.
What's your favourite venue to play?
Rough Trade was fun, I think, because we were the most rehearsed for it. It was our most recent one. Felt pretty good.
That was the best gig, I would say.
Best gig. I really liked Stokes Croft. Where was it we played? The
Hamilton House.
I quite enjoyed
that. As like an established venue, though, I'd say Louisiana is definitely my favourite.
Louisiana,
that we've played. It's
always got really good sound.
Not only for playing though, just for watching gigs. It's such a nice place, and the people are so nice there, and they're always so good at replying. And just sorting new gigs and stuff. I've never been to a bad gig there.
No, neither.
It's so good.
What song gets the best reaction when you play?
I think, Take It always does well, because being out long enough now that people know the words. When we played at Rough Trade, we had people singing it back to us, which was pretty special.
That was the first gig where we'd have. I'd say, like, What Do You See and Take It do well, just because we've actually played them at gigs like that because they're out. But I'd say, for not having been released, the one that gets the best response is probably 351.
Yeah.
Probably because it's got a pretty catchy hook, and people actually remember
it's
it.
Pretty chill as well, but it's also like a head bopper. It's got a good enough beat to it, but it's sort of laid back enough and indie enough that it's got a wide sort of appreciation. To
be fair though, despite how kind of like just like chill it is, It actually
Yeah.
goes off a fair bit in the chorus.
Especially, yeah,
Like
especially
in a gig atmosphere.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone's probably had a few pints, but
If you could give your fans one message, what would it be?
Don't jump off scaffolding.
yeah.
Sorry, that's George's hurt his foot. No. Buy our music, please.
Dan, that's
Come to our gigs. Give us money.
Dan, that's not a nice message.
Sorry. No, I'm kidding. I think if I had to give them a sensible message, think about the music you're listening to and try something new. If you're listening to the same old thing every now and then, even if you like it, listen to something different, fresh. I'm not just saying listen to us. There's so many good bands out there, and you can always go back to your old stuff and listen to it. But I think it's really important that people constantly are discovering new music and hearing what's out there, because it really opens your eyes to all sorts of things in the world, not just music.
I'd say exactly the same, and it goes for everything. Just trying to listen to something outside the box.
Now to play us out with a pre-recorded performance of their new single Big Cheddar. It's the Hypothetics.
To the barbed wires, started busting rollers and my matches selling car tires, setting fires, watching time fly by us, unbiased, not a yes, not a no, only hopping on the fence for a second when I roll, never letting nothing go, double negatives in row, the lesson I should know, but I don't, so it's a blessing and a curse. Listen to the lyrics, don't listen to the words. I can tell you didn't listen, but you're telling me you heard. Wishing that I picked a better rhythm for the verse, filling in the verse. Now I'm so fucking crazy. It's peak, but it really doesn't faze me. Maybe I'm dumb, maybe I'm just lazy. Pay me, give me that cheddar. Better, but you better not forget me, Daisy. He's gonna get you. 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 I'm putting the tune up, I'm rowdy and boozed up, doing the bruised up and I'm zipping a noose up, chewing the scene up and I spit it out. So we're slipping out, slipping when I'm sitting down. This is not a little loud. Nobody clapping till the last bar simmer down. You play a little gig and you pull a little crowd. You are a little crowd, but you pull a little frown. Come and take a seat and make a little do you figure out. Make the crowd move so they doubt what they're in it for. Got a loud mouth when I'm spitting short. I've been making music 10 years, I've been ripping more. Smack another twat. The fucking boy is the ball out. Couple sits down. That's the type of whiskey that'll make you Pierce Brown. Think you're so sound when you're thinking out loud. Gin around my mouth, just to rinse that shit out. He's gonna get you. 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 The B, the I, the G, the C, the H, the E, the D, the D, the A, the R, the D, the A, the R. Well, it's the B, the I, the G, the C, the H, the E, the D, the D, the A, the R, the D, the A, the R. What? He's gonna get you. 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 I need. Thank you very much. Big thanks to everyone for coming along.